All right, should you stay single or should you get into a relationship? This is a topic that has a lot of differing opinions around it, and there's specifically been a ton of heat around this subject in the last year or so in the men's content space. There's a lot of content on why being a player is the best way to go, and recently I've seen a bunch of tweets on why getting into a relationship and leaving behind casual dating is the best way to go. I've personally been single and played the field for years, but I've also been in multiple long-term relationships that have spanned years. I'm very familiar with both sides of the coin and want to talk a bit about the pros and cons of each with hopes of giving you some food for thought and clarity on what may be best for you. I believe where a lot of content creators are getting things wrong is by claiming that there is a best way to do things. I'm a firm believer that there is no best way and it's up to each man to figure out what way fits him best. It's like entrepreneurship versus having a 9-to-5 job. There's endless content around entrepreneurship being the best way to live, but as an entrepreneur myself, I can tell you that not everyone is built for it. It is very difficult and doesn't fit everyone. Many people would thrive working a 9-to-5 over the challenges of building a business. And there are actually many benefits to working a 9-to-5, even though it doesn't sound as cool as being an entrepreneur on paper. The debate of playing the field or getting a steady girl is very similar. So the first thing that always comes to mind for me when talking about this subject is the topic of freedom. The best part about being single is the freedom. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want, and whoever you want. And there's no one to be accountable to. It doesn't matter if you're out at the club until 4 a.m. or you're with a new girl every day of the week, you can simply do what you want. When you contrast this with relationships where you see guys hurrying home to their girlfriend or wife so she doesn't get mad, it's easy to see what would be the more desirable option as a man. No man with any self-respect wants to be at the beck and call of his girl, so the idea of living the free life is highly tempting. In my experience, this is usually the toughest thing to leave behind when entering a relationship. Even if you have a woman who's really chill and you're the clear leader in the relationship, there is some accountability that you have to have in order to keep the relationship going. It doesn't make sense to be out at the club until 4 a.m. on the weekends if you're trying to keep a long-term relationship going. You're just asking for problems, and I'd question if you even really want to be in that relationship to start with if you're doing that. Now keep in mind, I'm saying all this with the idea of having a traditional monogamous relationship. If you have an open relationship with someone, then things change a bit, but that's not my forte. I personally have no desire to share a woman. Anyway, if you've been single for a while and enjoy it, a long-term relationship can seem like jail in a way. It becomes a difficult question of, can I or do I even want to sacrifice this free life I'm living for one person, and is it even worth it? In my experience, if you have to convince yourself to give up your freedom and get into a relationship for the wrong reasons, you're starting off on horribly shaky ground and it's going to be doomed in the long run. Now, if you're a guy that is open to the idea of a long-term relationship, it's best when you meet someone who actually inspires you to want to focus on them. It's more of a natural process that occurs on its own. You don't have to do any convincing or rationalizing. It just happens organically from enjoying being around this person. Now, if you don't have a lot of dating experience though, this can be dangerous because you can end up with a bad case of one-itis to where you are focused on one girl purely out of scarcity. You have to really check yourself here and ask yourself if this girl is holding your focus because you can't get other women or because she's at a quality level that outshines the average girl. If it's because you finally got a woman to like you or because you're afraid of losing her, that is not the girl to commit to. You have your own scarcity issues you need to work through and you're operating from a toxic mindset. Now, there's also a concept in psychology called hedonic adaptation, which basically means that we return to a baseline level of happiness after experiencing large upswings or downswings in our feelings. Think of someone who tries a new drug, gets addicted, but continues to need more and more of it to get the same high that they once did. Life in dating is very similar to this. When you are single and playing the field, it can be a lot of fun. I personally find it hard to burn out on it because I like the adventure element of meeting new women all the time, but there is also an element of greed that is present and the paradox of choice. The paradox of choice is a concept that suggests that a lot of options actually require more effort for us to choose and can leave us feeling unsatisfied with our choice. It also makes making any choice at all nearly impossible at times. When you really get a hold of an abundance mindset and realize that there are millions of women on this planet, your mind opens up to the fact that there are really endless options and you're only limited by the work you put into yourself and your location. With location, you can move to another city and immediately open up thousands of options tomorrow if you wanted. There's just an abundance of choices, and that makes it hard to ever want to walk away from the fun that is having a variety of women. However, the greed and paradox of choice is that you can never get enough, and there's always something more that you want. One day you'll want fit white girls, the next you'll want a thick Asian girl, etc. There's always something more to go after, and it's never enough. Your brain also adapts to this physically in a way where you stop getting the same satisfaction response. It becomes more difficult to gain pleasure from casual sleeping around after a while. You usually need something new and shiny about the encounter to satisfy you. So maybe it's something like a new crazy kink or a new type of girl that you've never been with, but you'll start running into this issue where you need something new to keep things interesting. It's very similar to using a drug or any type of greed. The human brain is just never satisfied, and the more you feed it a variety of stimuli, the more the beast just wants to eat more and more. Now, this probably sounds like I'm making a case for being in a long-term relationship, but not necessarily. There's two things that can happen as a man once you get into a relationship after you've racked up some dating experience. You will either be burnt out by playing the field and it'll be a relief to get into a relationship, or you will suffer from the grass is greener syndrome and want to get back to the field because there is more to explore and you feel like you are locked down. And this is where individuality comes into play and why it's impossible to recommend a one-size-fits-all approach. Everyone is going to arrive at a different conclusion depending on their life experience, their genetic makeup, and their goals. I personally believe that most guys would be better off getting into a relationship at some point in the long run, but this is a generalization. There's plenty of guys that shouldn't do it at all. One of the reasons why I think a good chunk of men would do better in a relationship is because playing the field is an icy game, and it takes a certain level of discipline and an ability to turn off your feelings, and that isn't even necessarily a good thing. It's more so a requirement of the game, and it's a cold game that many aren't built for and shouldn't play. Another reason guys consider staying single is because of the perception that all women are promiscuous and it's not worth the investment in modern society. It's simply too risky and the return on investment is bad. Now, I agree and disagree with these points. I do agree that it's risky with a lot of modern women and that the return on investment can be bad. The average woman just isn't a great option, and social media has completely screwed society, and things like dating apps have made it easier than ever to just give up and Amazon Prime a new man or woman to your doorstep whenever you want. In terms of a return on investment, if you've ever had a relationship end badly or you've been cheated on, you know that feeling of never wanting to put the time and investment into something like that again. There's also the element as a man where we are expected to lead, provide, and have all these expectations put on us, plus dealing with the variety of good and bad times another person presents for little in return except for having a girl in your bed steadily and companionship. Now, to some people that may sound like a great exchange and like you're getting a lot in return, and in some cases maybe it is. Maybe someone really adds a ton to your life that makes all of that sacrifice worth it. Again, that's something that you have to come to the conclusion to decide. But if you do break it down, it sounds like the man is taking on the brunt of the work and responsibility for something in return that isn't quite equal. And these are things that he could also get single without taking on that responsibility and work. And these are all very valid concerns, but the part I do disagree with is that all women are definitely going to cheat on you. And trust me, this is hard to say as someone who has experienced cheating in the past, and as a single man, I've seen a ridiculous amount of ratchet behavior from women in relationships and women that are married. I have all the reasons in the world to come up with a speech on how all women are trash and to rant about never trusting any of them, but honestly, because I've dated a wide variety of women, I've also come across some good ones as well. People are complex and their values vary wildly based on their life experiences, the people they surround themselves with, and especially how they were raised. A lot of women come from trash parents, and those women can end up being a huge problem for the men that they're with, but others come from more disciplined and down-to-earth backgrounds with good father figures and can be beneficial to your life. The thing is that they aren't common though. You can't just go out and find one quickly unless you get lucky. They're in the minority, which means out of every 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 women, you may find one that actually fits the bill of being relationship material. The other side of the coin is that it comes back to you as a man and the aura that you operate out of and the lifestyle that you present. A masculine man who has options, boundaries, and doesn't tolerate trash behavior from a woman is going to have a much different experience than a simp guy on Reddit complaining that he just got cheated on for the 10th time and that all women are evil. A lot of guys assume the role of a victim with women and speak as if they didn't have any control over how things turned out, and once they are hurt, it becomes the core of their message. Again, I've had some pretty bad experiences with women to where I could easily do the same, but I've also had some really great experiences with women and enjoy their presence overall. In my mind, it doesn't do any good to operate out of fear and scarcity because it creates delusions. Just like how we look at modern feminism and label them delusional maniacs, we are susceptible to a similar delusion if we just wallow in misery about how women are terrible creatures and that we must rise up against the beast that is out to get us and all this stuff. There's some legitimacy to these claims claims, of course, and you have to be on guard and vet women carefully. The legal system also heavily favors women, but this is also why I recommend staying single for a while and dating a wide variety of women. It will help you to vet them better and spot the good from the bad. Experience is the best teacher overall, not a random men's content creator who dated 2 girls, got burned, and now makes videos about how to be an alpha male. And another thing to consider here is that you are always at risk in life. You're at risk of dying if you walk outside today, you are at risk of losing your job or income at any second, and you are definitely always at risk of a woman leaving you one day out of the blue. But as men, we are built to thrive and operate in the face of risk. So if that is your only reason for avoiding something, I'd argue that you are living a life based in fear rather than abundance, and that isn't your true masculine essence. Now, I'm not saying to go out there and just roll the dice and take risk for the hell of it and make bad decisions, but I am saying that if you're hung up on something just because you have fear, then you need to adopt a different mindset. At the end of the day, it's really a game of pros and cons, and you have to weigh them carefully to what works best for you as a man and individual. It would be crazy to think that my personal dating preference would fit you best as well, so you have to come to that conclusion on your own. The thing I stress with all guys is just to view everything with a perspective based in reality. Look at the real pros and cons of each lifestyle based on what they actually are, not the perception that someone has painted of them. The player lifestyle isn't as glamorous as some make it out to be, but it's also not as bad as the guys that harp on how empty and superficial it is. And having a steady girl isn't the nightmare it's made out to be, but it's also not a blissful love story either, and relationships are very hard in the long term. You have to fight to keep your mind in a state of clarity to figure out what's best for you, and that means quieting the noise around you. Turn off all the angry men's content that only highlights the evils of women, but also turn off the romantic comedy, TikTok highlight couple nonsense that paints being with one girl as the best thing ever. Stay single for a while and gain experience dating a variety of women so you even know what a good woman is from a bad one. And when you're vetting a girl, keep talking to other women to keep clarity of mind and to not end up in a delusional state of putting her on a pedestal to where you view her as being much better than what she actually is. The goal of being a masculine man is getting to a point where you can make logical decisions on your own based on your own opinion that you have formed from the unbiased facts that are in front of you, not the opinions of others and how they believe you should live. Anyway, hopefully you got some value from this video. Make sure you check the links down in the description below to check out some of the things I have to offer. Before you go, watch this video next, and I will see you in the next one.